Welcome to Macro Code. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So today we are going to proceed with our Blazor series on students management. So for those who are watching, you can consider subscribing. So as you can see, we have our students module where you can have students, parents, teachers, subjects, and departments. So you can actually add a new student where you provide the student registration number, the first name, middle name, last name, the email address, the date of birth, gender, and even you can attach a photo. So under academics, we have parents. You can add a parent. You can also provide details of a parent, and you can actually attach also a photo, and you can add the student that you want to link to that parent, the gender, the relationship. Then you also have teachers, whereby you can also attach a photo and give the details for a particular teacher. Then we have subjects. You can add subjects, and you can also add departments. So you can also see we have our library section where you can add the books. So you can see the books where you can capture the book name, the author, the number of copies, and even the book category. Then within library, you can issue book and return books. Then we have hostels where you can capture hostels within the school. You can add an hostel name, the hostel address, the description, and even the hostel type. Then you can also capture the rooms within the hostel, and these rooms you link them to the particular kind of hostel name that you have already registered and the hostel type, whether it is a 1 bed or a 2 beds. Then we have the grades under system settings. You have the grades, and we also have, you can actually add a new grade within the application, and we have the system users. Those are users who are logged in within our system. So today I want us to provide another sub area within our application. So I want us to add a front office within our application. So to do that, I want us to go to our components, then navigation, that is nav menu. I want us to introduce another sub module called, let me just copy, I want to replicate one. So I want us to introduce another sub module, and that sub module will be the front office. So the first thing before we actually now wrap up this application, we should ensure that we have our front office within the application, where we will be able to receive maybe parents and even capture any kind of complaints and even inquiries that are coming. So here I'll call this a module front office. So I'll call it front office. And the first thing that you need to have here, we can say complaints. So if I just update our application, we should be able to see the new module called front office. So under front office, I want us to capture complaints, assuming there is a complaint that has been logged by a student, a parent, or even a teacher. We should be able to log those complaints within the system. So let's just see if that is able to reflect. So just within the dashboard, you should be able to see our, let me just try to relaunch our application so that you're able to see that. So for those who are new to this channel and you are following this series, consider subscribing, like our video, and comment down below. And in case you need the source code, you can actually claim the source code on the link below. So I'm going to add this, going to do that. So just logged in, and you can see we now have our module called front office, and we have a sub area called complaints. But now, before we actually begin and do anything, I want us to add a model that will now store all our complaints within the system. So I'm going to create a model here, and I'm going to call it complaint. So in this model, I want us to have some items. One is the primary key, which will be a public int ID. Then we need to have the complaint type. So here I want us to have the complaint type. So I'll just do here int, then I'll say complaint type ID. But this complaint type, I want it to be a foreign key from our system code details. So I'll just call here system code detail. and this one will be just complaint type. So after doing that, we can have here, we can have the source where these came from. So I'm also going to have this as a foreign key, and I'm going to call it source ID. Source ID. So let me try to zoom this. So let me. So source ID. Then I'm going to have here a source. So it will also be coming from the source code, that is the system code detail. Then I'll also have a complaint. I can call it complaint type, complaint by. So here, this I can remove now this. So I can have here as a string. So this I'll call it string. Then I can say here complaint. So complaint by. So this is the person who complained. And you can have here, we can say phone number. So I can say phone number. And if this is a student, we can, so this one we can have it as nullable. And we can also have here, can also have a date when this complaint was raised. So we'll say date time, and this one should not be nullable. So you can say complaint date. Then you can also have the description. So we'll just do string, and you can have here the description. Then I'm going to have here the action taken. So I'll just say here action taken. So I'll just do action taken. Then I'm going to have, so what I want us to do, instead of having the action taken here, I want us to just have the description, and we leave it at that point. So then here we can actually inherit the user activity, so that we capture anyone that is the person who logged in the complaint. So you see here, so I'm going to do modify so that you're able to have so I'm going to use the modified by. So we'll be able to see the person who captured the complaint and who. Then after that, I want us to do something. So we can actually we can add another thing here. I want us to capture the status, whether this complaint has been actioned or not. So I'll just say status ID. Then here we'll just have here as a status. So since we have that, we should be able to know whether our status has been, our complaint has been actioned or not. But now, I want us to create another model that will help us to track the activities of a particular complaint. So we are going to call it complaint notes. So if we do that, I'm going to have here my primary key. So I can do that. Then here I can say int. So then I'm going to link this to our complaint. So here I'll just say int ID, then this one will be complaint ID, and this should be linked to our complaint. So we should be tracking the complaints activities, whether it was approved, it was resolved, it was escalated, all those options. So we'll be tracking them here, and whether someone was satisfied, we should be able to know. So we can do here complaint and when it was actually created. So we'll do that. Then I'm going to call this a complaint instead of having it on a single table. So this will be kind of a transactional table that will be having all the items. So the next thing that you can have here, we can actually have notes. So we can have here, string. Then we can have notes. So then we can also have another thing. We can say here also we can say date. We can use modify the user activity so that we're able to track. I don't think we need the user activity because this is being borrowed from the complaint, but this can be done by different persons. So we can have user activity here. So we'll be able to track who maybe escalated the complaint or even resolved the complaint. Then after that, we can say here we need to provide actions. So we need to provide the user. So here I don't think we need created by, modified. I think that is okay. Created by, modified by, we can use it. So the next thing is we can have here string. Then we can also have attachment. So this is the document attachment that can be attached when resolving a particular complaint or any reference. So once we have these, we can also have some. So I'm going to create another model only for, let me just, instead of that, I'm going to copy some fields here. And I'm going to copy this. And here, I'm going to say on the complaint notes, I'm going to add here. Then I can say this is actioned by, and should be a user within our system. So then we have action on. So this is when that particular complaint was either resolved or not resolved. So we can actually remove this. So we just track action by, and this should not be nullable. Then action on should also not be nullable. So we now have these two tables, and we should now include them on our application DB context. So I'm going to include them here. So there we go. So then here I'm just going to have it as a complaint, and these will be complaints. So that is our table name. Then you have the complaint notes. Complaint notes. So this should be not. This should be not. Then our table will be notes. So change that. So here will be not. Then our table name should be notes. So if we do that, I should now be able to add migrations. So I'm going to add migrations to our database. Then on adding migrations, so I'm going to say add migration. Then you can say front office. So if we press enter, we should be able to have our migration file generated. And the next thing is to update our database with the new tables. So I think that is okay. So let's just update database. So I'm going to update database using the update database command. And our table will be actually added with the new. So if everything goes well, then it should be okay. As you can see, everything has gone well. So you can see we have created a table called complaints, and these are the commands, complaint notes, and also we have our complaints table. That is a complaints table created with these all actions. So we are now good to proceed. And one thing that I want us to do is I want us to come to our pages. Then I want us to create something here interesting. So I want us to create a folder called complaints. So let me just minimize this. So I'm going to create a folder here called complaints. So we can say complaints. So within complaints, I'm going to create another Razor component, which will now give us our complaints list. So I'll say complaints list. So that is our Razor component. And we now have our list. So I want to borrow something from departments list just to go fast. So I'm going to duplicate that and paste it here. So then you are going to change some items. So this will be, let's just have this as interactive server. Then we can have this as a complaints list. Then here we need to specify here now we are getting the complaints from our complaint table. So that is our model. So then these will be all complaints. Then here, do we need this? I don't think so. I'm going to remove that. Then on our all complaints, I'm going to get these from generic service. Then we get all. Then we tell our generic service we are getting this from complaints. So if we do that, the error should be gone, and all our complaints will be assigned now the complaints from our table. So if we do that, then everything should be okay. So the next thing is we just need to loop through our complaints. So here we'll just say loading complaints. So I'll just say complaints. Then the next thing is all complaints. Then here now we want to store, so let's see what we can capture. So here I can say we need the complaint type. So here we'll say the complaint type. Then we can say here the complaint by. You can see the person who complained, complaint by, or we can say complainant. Sorry. So I'm going to just have this as complainant. Then we can also have phone number and complaint date. So here we'll say phone number. But for the students, we'll not be having phone numbers. Then here complaint date. Then if we do that, I'm going to have here, the next thing is we can also have the status. So you can have the status here. So I'm going to have here status. So then we are now looping through all our complaints. So here I want us to have the complaint type. Then we have the, so here should be ID, I mean. Then here should be the complaint type. Then here should be the complainant. So this is the complaint by. Then we can have the phone number. Sorry, we can have here phone number. Then we can have here the status. So I think we need to have the complaint date here. Let's have complaint date. So if we do that, then here we should say there is no complaints list available. So after that, we need to have these as complaints. This is our root complaints page, complaints list. Then if we go to our navigation menu under components, then nav menu, we should attach this now to our complaints list. So if we launch this application, we should be able to navigate to our list. But now when you go to our complaints list, we should also change these to add new complaint. So if we do that and launch our application, we should be able now to log in. So I'm going to log in here and navigate to the dashboard. So inside the dashboard, you'll see we have our front office, and if I click complaints, it should take us to the complaints list. But here you see we have add new department, which will not be the case. So if I update that and update our application, let's just change this to add new complaint. But now, if we had the complaint, so we should be able to add a new complaint. So how are we going to do that? So we need to create another Blazor component here. We are calling it add complaint. So if we press that and we will be able to create a new add complaint Blazor component. So I'm going to borrow from what we have for the add department, or we can just borrow from, let's do hostels, I think, or rooms. Let's borrow from this, and under add complaint, I'm going to paste everything here. So you'll be able to see this. You can say this is add complaint. And here, I want us to say add new complaint. And we'll be able to have our complaint there. Then we should now define our, here we should say the form should be the complaint form. and this is so let me just stop our application so that we don't have so many errors here. So let me undo. Yes, so this is complaint. Complaint. Then this is so let me just do this. You say a complaint. So the reason we are getting all of these issues here is because we need to decorate to assign our model here. Then we should be able to as well. So as you can see, our form is throwing some errors here. So to actually reduce this is we are going to copy some items here. So our input text here, this should be select. So I'm going to copy this here. First form should be a select form. So I'm going to paste this here. Sorry, it will be up to here. And the reason is the errors here is because of the input type. And here we can call this a complaint. And here we can have as a complaint type ID. So this should be an ID. And also this one should be an ID from complaint. So here that should resolve. This will be now complaint type. So here just do complaint type. I'm going to reduce this, and here we'll have our select. We'll say select complaint type. So if I remove this, we should look through the. So here we'll have our complaint object, and we have that. So the next thing is we can have here, instead of it'll say source, or we can say complaint source. So if I remove this, and this one also will be a drop down, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to have it here. So I'm going to have this here. You can say complaint source. Source. Then I'll have this as this one will be my source ID. So I'll just call source ID, and this one will be my source ID. So if I do that, then here will be my source ID as well. So the next thing is after source, what should we capture? We should capture the complaint by and the phone number. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say here input text. Then I'm going to have this as complaint object, and this is a complaint by. I'll do complaint by, and we can also have this as a complaint by, and this will be complaint by, or you can call it complainant. So that is a complainant. The next person we need to have here, the next thing is phone number. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I can just do away with this, and I can call this will be also complaint by here. This will be input text, not input area. Sorry, this should be input text. Let me just choose that. Then this also should be input text, and this will be here should be phone number. So you see our code is taking shape. So then here you have the phone number, and this is a phone number. So at the top here we should say yes, that's complainant. So the next thing that we need to capture here is after phone number we need the complaint date and the description. So here I'll remove this drop down, and I'm going to copy this, and I can have it as a input date, and I can say complaint date. So that is the date of the complaint. And here I'll also have that, and I'll choose this as a complaint date. So if we do that, the next thing is the description. So I'm going to do this and duplicate it here. Then we'll just have input. So we can have that now as input text area. Then we can say this is a complaint description. So we'll call this description. And I'm going to also have this as description, and also here as a description. So then here we'll say complaint notes. So we'll have that as complaint notes. So in our complaint, we now have the status, but the status will be appended by the system. Whenever you create a new complaint, it will be assigned the status. So then here on the list, so I'm going to just have this as href. Then we'll navigate back to our complaints list. So this is the navigation, and I'll have my list there. So this is our complaint form. But now when you say on valid submit, it should submit this data to our application. But there's one thing that we need to do. You see, on the complaint type, we need to have a drop-down list on the complaint type. So here, I want us to come to our code here. We should have these categories. So I want us to remove this. And here we'll say complaint types. Then we need another option for the sources. So we'll have complaint sources. So here we'll say complaint sources. So here I'll say sources. Then now here we'll have our complaint types. We need to get the list of complaint types, and this should be, so this will be get system code details, and we should be able to get by code. So I'll just duplicate this, and this one I'll show you where we are defining them. So here we'll say complaint types. Then another drop down list is the sources, and we'll also call these complaint sources. So we'll say complaint sources. So this will give us the drop down list for this particular kind of. So here we'll say complaint types. So that is the list that we should loop. And here, this is the complaint source. We should also loop through. So here we'll say type, and this should be type ID and the type description. So here you should also say complaint source. So if we do that, here we'll have a source, and we need to capture the source ID and the source description. So if we have that, then our form should look good. So let's see, there's an error down here. So for the creation of the complaint, we should actually now add a sync, and we say if we need to create a complaint, we should pass our complaint there and the object, that is the complaint object. And when we create that, we should now navigate back to our complaints list. So whenever we create a new record, we navigate back to our complaints list. So I'm going to remove this. So then this one, we'll call it create new complaint. So that is our action. So whenever you click create complaint, this is what should be handle the creation. So as you can see, our form now looks a bit better. So to navigate to this section, you need to go to our host, that is our complaints list, and this is add complaint is the button that we should navigate to. So this should be add complaint. So let's just take the name of the root here, and we should just update it here. So once you have that, we should now be able to access our application and be able to access this complaint form. So to see that, you can launch the application, and we should be able to see that we have a complaint form that we can now launch a new complaint. So let's just wait and see. So if you're new to this channel and you like our videos, please subscribe, comment down below, and we should be able to do what you request. So I'm going to have now my login here, and I'm going to log in. Then on logging in, if I go to front office complaints, add new complaint, I should be able to see my form, add new complaint. But as you can see here, we don't have any data. So to get this data, remember we added some filters here. Under system code detail, we want complaint types and the complaint sources. So for the complaint type, I need to go to system settings, then system codes, then I'll add a call complaint types. The description, I'll call it complaint types. Then I save it. So if I save it, I should be able to see it here. Then when I go now to the complaint, that is the system code details, I should be able to create the options for that particular kind of complaint type. So here I'll call this, one of the complaint type can be fees. Then I'll say fees complaint. Then I'll choose the complaint type as the code and I save it. So you'll be able to see now I have my fees as the complaint type. I'll also create another one. I can say here teacher. Maybe students are complaining about teachers. So I'm going to create a complaint type called teacher complaint. Then it is one of the complaint type. I can also have another one called maybe transport. They're complaining about transport. I call this transport complaint. Then I'll have here as a complaint. Then I'll also have another one called hostel. Maybe they are complaining about hostel complaint. So if I do that, and this should be part of the complaints. Sorry, here. So if I save, there's also maybe I can add another one called sports. And here I can say sports complaint. And here I'll have my complaint types. Then I can also add another one called food. They can be complaining of food. So food complaint. Then I can add here complaint type and save. So if we go back to our front office complaints and click add, under complaint type, we should be able to see all those complaint types. So you'll see fees complaint, transport, sports, hostel, and food. So what about the sources? So we don't have anything on the sources, so we need to create it. So let's just go to system codes again, and I'm going to create another system code, and I'll call it complaint sources. Sorry. So I'm going to create this, then I'll call here complaint sources. So if I save, then I need to go to our complaints details, and I'm going to create different sources. So I'll say advertisement. Maybe the sources came through an advertisement, or they complained either through students is the source of the complaint. I can have it here. We can also have maybe online. We receive the complaint through an online platform. Then we can also have maybe through a teacher. Maybe a teacher put forward a complaint. So we can do that. Teacher can be a source. And if we add, we can also add admission. I can say admission campaign. Maybe you receive a complaint on an admission campaign. Then this will be a source. So if we go back to front office, add new complaint, under complaint sources, you'll be able to see we have the complaint source. But now, there's one thing that we need to track. Whenever we're adding a complaint at the complaint date and the complaint notes, we need to capture the person who did that. So here under complaint, when you're creating a complaint, I'll just do created. That is here we should do complaint object. Then I'll just do dot created by, or even created on. We do date time. Then now, then we'll also do here. Also do created by. We now have the user who did this. So who is the user? This is the user ID. So we pass the user ID here. So if we do that, we should be able to have now the person who created and the user ID. So let me just apply the changes here, or let's relaunch our application. Then we try to create a complaint. So let's just log into our table and see if there is something that we need to check. So if we check on our table, I'm going to check on our table here, and so you'll be able to see there is a table called complaints, and we have the complaints notes. So if I do that, you'll be able to see we have a complaint type, source ID, complaint number, created by, and modified by or modified on. So let's just log in and create one of the complaint. So I'm going to do that. So if I come here, do complaint, add a new complaint, then I'll select a fees. Here I'll say advertisement. I'll say this is the person who reported his macro code, and this is the phone number. Then the date reported was that date, 2024. Then I can say notes is expensive. So if I do that, and you see here, we need to change this to save complaint. So if I click save, it should actually launch a complaint, but I don't know if it has done that. You see, it has not done anything. So if we just have our breakpoint here, let's just go. If we go back here, we do fees, we do advertisement, macro code, phone number, we have our date, and we do that. Then you say complaints. Then if we save, you see we have our object here. So I'm going to do that. Then let's see the data, whether there is something that we missed that should not be optional. So we have the complaint by, complaint date, the complaint by ID, the person who created, the description, the modified on, phone number, we have the source and the yes. So we have something that we missed out. You see here, we have the status. So we should be able to assign a status to our complaint. It should not be nullable. So how do we do that? So let's just go to our application again. Under system code details here, we need to create an option for, we say complaint status. And on this complaint status, I'm going to call this complaint status. I can save it. Then under system settings, under system code details, we need to create the options for that. So we can say pending, whether a complaint is pending. We are able to know. Another is we can say whether it has been actioned, whether a complaint has been actioned. Here we can also do whether a complaint has been escalated. So here we'll do escalated. Then we can also have whether a complaint has been closed. So you can do here closed. If we select that, we save. So the next thing is we need to get that complaint. So we need to get the status of the complaint. So to get the status of the complaint is every time we create our application, we launch this, we should be able to get the status. But now we need to pass the code. So we need to pass two things. So I want us to modify this. I want us to get the code by, so we need to pass the code. So we need to pass the code and the by status code. So I want to have that as another method within our iSystem detail repository. Then you are passing two things here. So you'll have the code and the status code. So here I'll just do string. So if we do that, we need this now on our implementation service. So which is within our server here and services, system code detail. So I'll need to have another method here. So I'll just copy this and do that. Then I'm going to have this here. Then here I'm expecting string, then status code. So what will happen is, let's just format this to one dot per line row. Then I'm going to have here where system code.code is that, and so I can now provide my other status filter and code. So I can do x.code is equals to status. So I'll just do this one, status code. So this will give me a single object. So I'm expecting that, and it will return the data. So if we do that, I'll just do here first or default async, then it will return a single. So if we go to our I repository, we should also change that. So I'm going to our interfaces. Where is it? Our repository pattern here. Then under system code detail, this should return a single object. So we just want to get only the active status. So as you can see now here, I'll be able to get here, I'll be able to assign my status here. I'll just do dot status ID is equals to, so I'll just do await here. Then I'll get by status ID. Then here I'll get by complaint status. So I'll just do complaint status. Then I'll put in another comma here. Then I'll say pending. So I just want the pending status. So every time someone creates a complaint, it should have, so this should be, then here I'll just, so because that is 1, so I'll just get the result, or I'll actually assign it an ID. So I can actually do here, I'll just say result, then I'll say dot. So I'll just do this, I can actually do that, wait, and I'm going to do, let me just do variable pending status. So that will give me pending status, and I can now do here is equals to, so this pending status will give me the ID. So if I do that dot ID, it will give me the status of that pending. So if we launch now our application, we should be able to assign our status. Our status should be having an ID. So let's just launch. So every time you create an application, it should have an ID status, and our application will be assigning any new status as pending. So let's just log in here. So I'll just do here sign in. So front office, add new complaint, choose the complaint type, advertisement, macro code, phone number, this is the, so I'll do that, then these are good. So if I save, you should be able to see now we have a complaint type. So let's just change our UI to ensure that it is saying save, that is our page. Let me just change our button. So I'm going to complaint, and our complaint should read add new complaint. So I save complaint details. So if I apply the changes, let me just relaunch. So I'm going to relaunch that. And let's just see what happens. So if I sign in here, I'm going to sign in there, then you should be able to see front office complaints, and you'll be able to see we have a complaint here. I can add a new complaint. Phone number, I save that. This is the date of the complaint, and you can say okay. So we've saved the complaint, but now remember we created two tables, the complaint notes and the complaint table. So how are we going to track the changes of the complaint, and how are we going to display the details here and status here instead of having these numbers? So I'm going to leave it there for today. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing, like our video, and comment below. Then I'm going to also paste a link there. If you want to claim the source code, you can claim the source code and help us grow our channel. So see you in our next video. Bye.